Oh. So yeah,
Right.
I mean, under the circumstances, we stopped the bleeding and survived till the second half. I think that went okay.
Okay. Um, feel free to grab a seat. All right. Do any of you guys have any cigarettes?
I do.
Senor Nino, may I ask who is this man here?
Oh, this is ex-judge and member of my cabinet, Serenade. He actually won. What was the last case you won there, Serenade?
It was the People v. James Callahan. It was a first-degree murder.
And how'd that go?
Not guilty.
So,
See, I
yeah.
thought you were Silas Moreno for a second, senor. My blood was boiling.
That happened.
Yeah,
No,
I thought this is the type of sick joke you're playing, Nino.
I see you or no, I'm gonna want to word with that guy.
Oh man.
As am I.
He owes me like 150K as far as I'm concerned.
Wait, who
This
does?
is-
Silas?
Silas, yeah.
This is a really nice interior, I must say.
Yeah. This was my plans for after third term. I was gonna retire, do private law legislation shit. And then I got aggroed, so
Okay.
yeah. So
Listen, I just have to say again, I am dumbfounded at what the prosecution was even aiming at over there.
it appears as though at best they have second degree murder. I don't particularly see where the premeditation, malice afterthought is coming from. Spoke briefly about this to Serenade and Robin acutely noted that there is the tape of the doctor in which you are present in, and that does show the premeditation. So
Yeah, you don't take someone to a cove and film their execution if you aren't planning it.
Why they not play that? I was expecting any second. They instead spend all the time talking about response times and the number of bullets and like what their professions are, what they focus on. Nothing specific to the case, and they have this island with labels that nobody can make sense of. Why did they not show the thing which would have been completely
they
damning
don't
to
have
me?
to, unfortunately. So anything that is posted to the docket is inherently in evidence, including that videotape. And it is evidence that as a part of closing, they would be pointing out that evidence.
Is it so we are to assume that anything that is posted to the docket, the judge has to review. So what is the purpose of the court date
not
itself?
exactly. There are a few items which they're very old, so they degraded over time, which have been excluded from the evidence.
Oh,
I forget which specific items, but it's a couple of the videos, whichever ones don't work, basically.
It may have been the interrogations I asked Silas to get.
Yeah, it was one of the interrogations, for sure.
To answer your question about the purpose of the court date, Edgar, it's to get the witness testimony out of the way.
I thought I thought they go on the docket, they say these are all the things we want to bring up in court because the stuff we bring up in court is what is we want to use.
Like I explained to you earlier, Edgar, they can do it. Like they could have done it today, right? But they didn't. But they could still go over evidence in their closing, which either they will or they won't. But they don't really have to.
So you mean if they have evidence of like videos and photographia, they could put that in the closing and make like a slideshow?
Yeah. So like in this case, like for their witnesses, they referenced a bunch of different reports and wove it into their questioning. But they didn't pause to like play videos or anything like that. So yeah, my expectation is that they'll make a show of displaying some of that for the judge at the end.
Yeah.
You'll have more more impact rather.
Robin,
I will admit, yes.
No, go ahead. I would like to know what you are thinking because I did not expect that. I don't think anybody did. And after you spoke, I sensed the confidence, spirit, and the air just sapped completely out of everyone in the left side of that office in that courtroom.
Yeah, so, planning with Silas, my goal was to try and discredit the confession. Now, given that Silas didn't show up, I had to throw a bit of an audible and say that I'd lied. Now,
So that wasn't the plan going in?
it was going to be had I had a chance to speak with Silas, but I was going to speak with Silas on Saturday, and he wasn't available, and then on Sunday, and he wasn't available, and earlier today, and he wasn't available. And I didn't have a chance to speak with you, Murphy, because I only found out Silas wasn't attending until the courtroom found out.
Yeah, I didn't find out too early either.
Yeah. So when they interrogated me, they said, you said, because attorney-client privilege ends upon death, I can confirm all of this is true. They asked me, did you say this? And I said, yes, I did say it. And now I am saying it is a lie.
Because it turned out not to be true.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a willful lie. Because at the time you believed it to be true, correct?
In a sense, yes. I wanted the police to stop investigating what was on that confession. And by telling them that the man who had supposedly did it is now dead, I thought that would do the job. If they come after my bar, if they come after, criminal charges, then so be it.
Like Edgar said, you had every reason to believe it was true at the time, but it turned out to be untrue.
I was trying to understand the motion there, because what you did is a big sacrifice.
Trying to make them doubt my word.
But you said that you lied. But it wasn't an intentional, willful lie, because at the time, you believed it to be true. In this way, would you be able to preserve your reputation?
Perhaps. We'll see. It's not too. I mean, the people who I care about in terms of my reputation know, and this won't change it for them. Well, if the PD think less of me, then so be it.
I mean, in terms of keeping your job here.
I'll be able to keep my job.
Now,
Yeah,
Nino,
I don't, Mr. Ferrara doesn't strike me as someone who went into this not knowing what the potential outcomes could be. So.
Now, Nino, on the phone, you mentioned that first degree is what they're trying to push. And as long as the totality of most things were acts of passion, things in the heat of the moment, which was our angle anyway, then...
Not exactly. We're going with temporary insanity. Remember?
Which doesn't that come out to the same thing?
Wait, what?
No, crime of passion is like, oh, you cheated.
Yeah.
Smash.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean to kill her. Like that's crime. That's a heat of passion. This is more you lost control of yourself, but you're not insane chronically. You don't have to go to, you were at the time, but you don't have to go like get inpatient therapy or whatever. And they helped us out by opening the scope on sort of the supernatural elements and things of that nature.
They did, right? Like, that was fucking, what is this fucking hocus pocus shit they brought in? I was like, what the fuck?
Well, I'm not so sure myself, honestly, but it does help us and opens the scope as far as establishing that Edgar was not in control of himself and was overcome by some other force, or at least that's how he perceived it when he carried out these actions. And he's of course been in therapy all throughout this process. We can demonstrate that he's been making every attempt to better himself. I think we can really limit the damage here and get numbers instead of life sentence, maybe even.
Can you explain to me why on every situation they kept harping on how long it takes to show up for officers and the bullet count? Like, what difference if murder is committed 1 bullet or 100 bullet? And why this constant for every evidence they bring up? They constantly like asking how long does it take to respond to things?
That was in my notes.
What were they getting at?
That was in my notes. I had a question about that too. Is like, what's the emphasis on response time? Like, why do we care?
I think if I were to guess, it's about timeline.
Or it's like you intentionally brought this person to a remote area to ensure that the response time would fail to save the life or whatever. That was the only thing I could think of.
So I have a question about the temporary insanity. That is in order to push for second degree or manslaughter. Is that the angle?
Well, we'd be going for not guilty by means of temporary insanity, and establish that, you know, he had lost control of his ability to make his own decisions.
I don't know if that's gonna work.
Some other means or through just a mental breakdown, and
okay,
you know, he needs to be punished, but you know, he is not the person who did those crimes. It's like it's totally out of character for him to do those sorts of things. He's been nothing but unmodeled. This is kind of more towards if he's found guilty, the next bit. You know, he's obviously not the same person as he was then. He's been a model citizen since he's been on trial, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to kind of incorporate those elements. But
I got you.
The TLDR of that is I do think that Edgar needs to take the stand and tell his side of the story, because the chances are we're going to be found guilty one way or the other. So it's going to be better and more sympathetic if he actually tells his side of the story.
I mean, it's like when those things happened, it was not me. I was pinche possessed.
Murphy, are you familiar with Lang's case that recently happened?
Not particularly, no.
Okay. He also got serial assaults and killings, different circumstances. He pled guilty to all of it. In a sense, yes. He pled guilty to all of it. But when it came to his sentence, I believe he got 9 years. And part of the argument made for it, the prosecution made this argument, was, you know, this man's a violent criminal, has been for months, but he's been good ever since he turned himself in. Hasn't done anything, blah, blah, blah. If we take that and apply it to Edgar, Edgar hasn't done crime in months that he's been caught for. Literal months.
Edgar, is this a similar situation that you referred to when we were talking, or is that a different one?
No. When I returned, I was injured. I was taken by the paramedics. The sheriff showed up, and essentially I was charged and I pled not guilty. I was given trial date, and I had to petition for bail. Eventually, they put me on house arrest, and I was not allowed to leave the confines of a small building that they needed for several weeks. I did all of that. I was subject to daily searches. I had police presence next to me the entire time, a personal chaperone. And once the house arrest was done, I was given leave to walk around the rest of the city, as I was no longer a threat to the park and avoid my court date. But I have been under parole, under strict restrictions. I have been subject to drug tests. I check in every day. And I like not a speck of like crime have I done in this entire time.
Well, when you told me that someone else had been charged for the same thing and was given a lighter sentence, you were referring to Buddha, correct?
I was referring to Lang. See, we were in house arrest together, facing the same serial assaults and killings. And his court date was the 13th. Mine was to be the 14th. But
and he had 2 more bodies, not fewer bodies than you did?
I have a few more bodies.
Okay.
I
But
have
yeah,
a
we
few
had
more.
already planned to refer to that sentencing in
Mhm.
terms of sentencing recommendations should he be found guilty. So we've covered that, even though we had like 10 minutes.
I also have been seeing therapists. I've been visiting kiflomers. You know, they can vouch for my good boyness.
Yeah. You should also harp on the fact that it's not a dying declaration. The man's alive.
Oh my God. I literally was like dying inside. Fucking every
Dying
5 seconds, dying
declaration. Yeah.
declaration, dying declaration. Murphy, please, for the love of God, you should ask Aaron, what is a dying declaration? And then look at Edgar and be like, is he alive?
Does he look dead to you?
I mean, they kept saying before he came back to life. I mean, it's fucking bizarre. I'm talking
Yeah.
to my lawyer, Benny.
And we can correct that tomorrow again when I think you should take the stand.
Okay.
Oh, shit.
Obviously, you have a lot to go over. Basically, overnight, Murphy. I assume you'll have questions prepared for what you want to ask me.
Yeah, no, like obviously today was about, it wasn't an exciting first half. It was just about surviving and making adjustments, and going into the second half was, informed of what they have, which I am, and it's not going to be a lot to, listen to later when I gotta, do my real studying. But yeah, I should have everything kind of firing on all cylinders for the defense tomorrow. That's the plan.
One of the witnesses for the defense, Ashira. She was a marshal at the time all this was happening. She is no longer.
Uh-huh.
She is a criminal.
Okay.
She will say what is needed. So if you want to
Okay.
nudge her in the right direction,
Has
then-
she been
I mean,
charged?
I'll take any help that I can get in terms of
she's
like
done crime.
the
I'll tell you
defense's
that.
witnesses, why they've been called. Like, I just need like background on what Silas was planning tomorrow and what's set up for tomorrow, and I can kind of improvise the rest and kind of plan around today in regards to
Yeah.
how I
So
approach it.
when I handed over that book, myself, there was Aaron Carter, and there was Ashira.
It was just you three.
Mm-hmm. Now, if Ashira will be on our side, we can corroborate the story, because I don't see a report detailing much about that interaction.
So that's where I feel like it's going to get a little tricky, because it's about creating doubt. That document, as it was read, sounded like it had intimate details about what transpired. Those details of which seemingly are corroborated with the evidence, some of which was pointed up today. For example, the scene over at that little island in Polito, the scene at the lighthouse, and therefore it creates a situation where the writer of that document would have needed to know about all of these situations that have your forensics on it, Edgar, and then the letter has the blood. So while I can understand it might make people raise an eyebrow, like, did Edgar really write this? The problem is all the evidence points that way, creating a scenario where you have to provide an affirmative defense, a alternative reasonable scenario. And so even if Oshira did, let's say, go in there and say, yeah, me and Robin got this from a random person, kind of have to create who that random person is.
Well, Ashira can speak to my, because Aaron said that I was distraught. Ashira can speak to my sense, how she perceived how I was. I can speak to how I was in that conversation, and it sort of
It doesn't, because it has facts in it.
And it doesn't completely discredit Aaron's word, but it becomes a 2-to-1. I'm not saying it's going to win the case, but it helps.
Who's being called up tomorrow?
Well, we're recalling, potentially all the witnesses from today, with some more prep time ahead. And I honestly don't know who the witnesses tomorrow are for the defense yet, except for who you've already mentioned.
Who do you remember, Edgar? Like who y'all had called up?
I have been told Silas is cooking. He got it all figured out. Trusting Silas. I know that he was meeting with Oshera, and I know they were cooking something, but he left no trail, no evidence, nothing. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know what the plan is. His aim was to discredit the note, which led to the warrant, because like you says, depending on where the note came from,
Have Ashira
buried-
say she wrote the note based on police information she had access to.
Also, I don't know the relevance, but do we know exactly what happened to Silas?
Yes. He
Is it
was
relevant?
shot in the head. Yep. But I don't know
Could be
anything beyond
relevant.
that. It could. Did you guys hear what I said? Why not get Ashira to say she wrote the note based on police evidence, and they're not going to be able to do shit anyways because it's past the statute of limitation.
That's a big ask. I don't know her like that.
I don't think it is.
That is a massive ask, amigo.
You'd be
It
surprised.
could expose us if
Yeah.
if she doesn't want to deal with that.
Because the way it happened was, I'll tell the truth of what happened. Edgar, you gave me the note. Told me to give it to the police after a certain amount of time.
Mm.
I believed you were going to your death.
As did
So
I.
I honored a dying man's wish. I called Erin because she'd been the lead investigator. Oshira was there. I read out the note, gave it to them, assuming that Edgar was dead. Told them it was true, which is a mistake on my part. I'm trying to make recompense for that. I gave them the book, and that was it.
Mm.
Now that book, like you say, Nino, depending on who made it up, had information that was so intimate that only Edgar will have, i.e., the hidden compartment in the property of Mikey Stargo, where there was a body found.
Did they? Oh.
Now, what's confusing to me is they had the prosecution. They played the video of the Whisperer being shot. It's against all doubt. The person is taken there, he's shot in a cove. There is an order for execution that is first degree. They showing the compartment if they manage to go in there as evidence. It would be an open shot. That's why I was convinced that there is no way out of this. Not to mention Bruce Baylor is shot down in cold blood by me on camera. This when I was down like off the deep end. None of this was brought up. So again, I'm confused. Like, if all of those are not brought up, not mentioned, and the only thing that's talked about is the number of bullets and response time,
No.
are they trusting that the judge is going to look at that stuff
Yes.
despite them not bringing it up, or
They
Yeah.
they
they
will
still
bring it
have-
up on the final day? They will present like a slideshow.
They were presented in
yeah,
their
they
closing
may.
arguments if they're somewhat competent.
To paint like kind of imagine this, right? Imagine I'm a prosecutor. We're gonna be like we're gonna point out evidence C on the document, video of the death of the Whisperer, and then they can add their closing narrative to it, so to speak. So they don't actually have to reference it prior to that.
Because what happens is we get bogged down in like itemized referencing and playback and running things back and all that kind of stuff during the court case. in the middle of it, which just tends to draw everything out and make everything confusing to the people watching. So typically, more often than not, they save it till the end and just
Understood.
ask the judge, like, you know, refer to this. But in a case like this, where there's like actual fucking real talk video of you, like no voice changer doing the deed, they might play that for sensational purposes, and they can.
Now, in the death of AK, someone was on an island far away watching the place and has very grainy footage. It's too far away to make any sense of who it is. Now, when AK was found,
You know
he had
what's
an AK on
crazy,
his
chat?
person.
Nino
They
could probably
said that
ask
the number of
Ashura
times he
to
got
do it,
shot in the evidence,
or
in the
probably ask Charlie.
report, it just said multiple GSW with no more evidence.
But I
Also,
don't
he
think
said the
I don't
AK
want to
that
overcook because
was in
I'm not the
possession of
lawyer, right?
had a
I don't know
mic
what their
print
plan
on
is,
it
so I don't want to like
and branded print on it.
overstep. Like Nino's not going
But
to
it would also have
overstep
AK
here
print
and
on
try
it.
to be too
No.
directive because
Let's
that's not
say, like, you hang
helpful.
around with friends,
Nino's
sometimes
not
you
the
pass
attorney.
weapons around.
But I think Ashura
Again, I
would
don't
do it
know,
if
like, is there conclusive
convinced.
evidence beyond a shadow of a doubt that some grainy footage where it's literally like
Because
two
what's the
specks of
worst that
some
happens to
gunfire
her? She already says fuck the
and know
cops.
the one who shot.
What is going to happen? What are they going to do to her?
Brandon's
Nothing.
DNA on it
Good
is
point
doubted
to
in
bring
of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up.
It's actually
because
not a
even if
big
we're gonna
ask.
Go down and try this, temporary.
I mean, hell,
insanity,
I'd
call
do it.
defense on this other
If
stuff.
I wasn't the
Anything
mayor
that we can knock
and
out,
30
it's
days
good
was already
for
up,
us
I'll
as
go,
citizens. So
yeah, motherfucker,
if there's
I
doubt
took
on
that shit, bro. and put-
particular incident,
Plus, it'd be
then, yeah,
sick.
let's use it.
It's,
But
it's
I
three they
wish
need,
it,
right?
but I wish it to be done in a way so that, like, I don't want. Will they then be able to pursue Brandon in any way based on that? I don't want like
No,
us saying
no,
that
no.
to cause someone else in
any-
crime.
Any doubt is it's gonna go both ways or all three ways. You know, like there's three different DNAs or fingerprints on the gun. You know, any doubt that applies to you would apply to Brendan equally, unless there's something to put them over the top.
I mean, honestly, you could probably have Brandon tweet out there in the court case because apparently the judge, Braden Twada, was fucking. Could Brandon have read that note? Says it and then he just tweets, "I did that shit."
Wait, can you say
It'd
that?
be inadmissible.
Yeah, well, yeah.
In regards to them pursuing Brandon, it's way out of statute of limitations for him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Correct.
understood.
That too.
But like,
So there would be no harm to him in exploiting that reasonable doubt.
She,
If that's your concern.
yeah, I don't want in my defense to cast somebody else in crime, if that makes sense. Now,
No, that makes perfect sense. That's like
see, the gun
common.
itself, when they talk about AK, because they spend a lot of time on this one, is they said that the ballistics don't show that the AK he was holding was the same one that, like, the projectiles that he been shot with. I know for a fact that day he died to a Desert Eagle handgun, high caliber. It was not to the AK. But it's beside the point.
Well, maybe not. Is there anything in forensics they've overlooked that might indicate that?
When the man was dead on the floor, the AK was then shot into him. As ceremony is the best way I can describe. But the killing blow was done by a Desert Eagle, which is not brought up at all in that report. Again, the
Not even the
autopsy,
medical report?
the autopsy only showed GSWs because it's weird that the prosecution asked them that and the police said, I don't know, all the report said is GSW. That's it. No more detail than that. So with that one casting doubt as me being the killer, Bruce Baylor was not dead, he's still alive. Halen Wild is dead. That one okay. Without shadow of doubt, I'm present, he fucking died. First degree execution in a cove.
Daesh.
And then Aaliyah Court, the other one I think was.
They said that I talked on the phone and I didn't feel like moved enough. Like, what the fuck is that? Was I supposed to be sobbing or something? Like, what was the point they were trying to make there?
That
In support
they
of
just
their
said that you
claim.
would. It's just kind of like he said, she said that you had said, I already said my goodbyes or something to that effect. It's hardly proof of a crime.
Not even that, he said, I've already said what I needed to say.
Yeah, that too. They kind of changed it in the testimony.
Because without shadow of doubt, is it 100% certain tying evidence and proof that Edgar killed her because the murder weapon never found as far as I'm concerned. As far as I know, the murder weapon wasn't found because it was done with an automatic, small caliber. Now, the body of Aliyah was taken out of the hospital and was moved to a facility, hidden compartment in a building. This perhaps like I'm not going to pretend that someone else did that.
Okay, but the chain of custody is concrete there. Like it was definitely taken from the hospital, and that's all they can prove was, you know, that you had a part in it.
Only based off of the confession letter.
Okay.
The confession letter say that she was taken and she was moved to this facility, even unknown to the owner of the property that compartment existed.
But did you confess to killing Aaliyah Court?
In the confession I did.
Oh.
And this might sound a bit absurd, but that is one that I have difficulty denying even in the stand.
Yeah, and then at the end of the confession it says, I now go to atone for the death of Aaliyah. Doesn't mention the death of anyone else. Something that could maybe be harped on, you know.
So it does sound like we can cast enough reasonable doubt on at least a number of these counts.
Mm.
You know, which could bring us more in line with the Buddha's sentencing. We'll
Yes,
say.
I agree.
So, you know, you said you have a couple more than he did. If we get rid of a couple, then that's, you know, in theory, that should amount to 9 years, no?
It's 3 they need for serial assaults, right?
See, Jules Montels, I didn't kill either. He was dead when I took him to the lighthouse.
So if we remove 2 of the underlying counts, then serial assaults and killings just goes away. Okay.
Yeah.
So Bruce Baylor didn't die. So, I mean, that's not a first-degree murder. Palin Wild's the only one that I think, if they can point it out well enough, is a first-degree murder.
That is the government employee.
Yeah, it's the doctor.
There is Jules, who was killed not by me, but some associates. I moved him myself to the lighthouse. I took a dead corpse there, and for ceremony, I poured rounds in him, but he was dead. AK, I poured rounds in him for ceremony, but he was dead. Aliyah, I hate to say I am responsible for. Aliyah and Helen here is the one I'm truly guilty of, though I bear responsibility and claim ultimate fault for the rest of them dying as well. The truth is, Murphy, and I mean this in complete frankness, I made a mistake and killed someone that was dear to me, and I was overcome with intense grief.
Really?
I became desperate.
He
I
didn't.
started praying to ghosts and demons. What followed was a series of unfortunate events in which a lot of people lost their lives.
All right. Now, in comparison to that, what was Buddha's defense that got him the 9 years? Was it something similar to that?
He offered no defense. He pled guilty.
He just pled guilty.
Yeah.
He pled guilty on the day of trial.
The bar for serial, I'm going to be honest, I was surprised it got serial assaults and killings. It's the bar is a lot lower on that than it used to be, Murphy. You know, where it was like serial killer shit. You know?
Yeah. No, I got it. So it was at least 3 though, right?
It's only 3.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure that that's still true. You know, Edgar, I really like the way that you put everything you just said, you know, in terms of the remorse. You know, I felt that was real. You know, we should definitely lean into that. You know, if we're going with this you were possessed kind of temporary insanity aspect, you know, for whatever we can't talk our way out of.
Yeah, Ashira could also help speak to his mindset.
Mm.
Oh, and is it possible that we could notify your therapist to the whatchamacallit, the open forum in sentencing, if it comes to it?
I can contact her and see if she is available that day. 100%. It is Pixie.
Okay, because that could be helpful. I know she doesn't like court a great deal, but anyone who could speak to your efforts to seek mental health services and cope with the
I think he
situation,
has a really good
everything's
shot
going
here,
on
chat.
well, that could help us a lot. You're gonna have to ask though if she's willing to do that for you, because I can tell you already she's not gonna be willing to do that for me.
See, I will ask her.
We have history.
Again, the idea is that Lang is giving this lighter sentence in the face of things because his confession shows that he is reformed and that he atoning and that there is like discontinuation of the behavior. He was very passive during house arrest, and it shows genuine change. Now I believe
What we're
following
doing is similar to that.
see, and I feel like we have even more months showing genuine change.
Yeah, but we are pleading not guilty, which is different from what Buddha did. But we are doing basically the same thing, but we are just emphasizing that you were not in control of yourself during those periods of time where the shootings of the dead bodies and the homicides took place.
I would also, point out, just because Lang may have pled guilty, Edgar choosing to invoke his right to a fair trial and due process should not be held against him.
Yeah. And Edgar, the most important thing is that as much as we are taking the position of not guilty and that you were not in control of yourself, just as much as we argue that, you need to be remorseful and feel awful, you know, and accept that some punishment must be coming your way and that there should be some justice. So we have to offset that. Like, if we're denying that you're ultimately responsible, then you still need to feel bad and be remorseful as you've been in this discussion. That's very important to how it's the optics of it.
Senor, if you prevent me being in prison for the rest of my life and prevent me from dying to a firing squad, then I will have seen this performance and your skills as complete success.
That is what Edgar said to me when I spoke to him as well.
I'm not expecting to go off scot-free. I'm not expecting any of that. If it's time, I'll do it.
Oh
I
my
have been
God.
through worse.
As long as you are not delivered life or death.
Yeah, I think we're going to avoid the death penalty on this one. I'm pretty confident of that based on the case that they presented and the scope they opened up on the, you know, again, the supernatural elements that we're going to be mildly leaning into here.
Wait, what the fuck are they talking about? Fucking supernatural.
I mean,
I feel
senor,
pretty good for a case
hearing-
that I just took like 10 minutes ago.
you did phenomenal. I'm telling you, after your opening, I thought the defense could have done so much more, but now it makes sense that they perhaps are leaving it for the final statement they're gonna make.
Yeah, and it was very fortunate that the judge was understanding and appreciative of the fact that we wanted to defer our questioning till tomorrow so that we could be better prepared. You know, I don't know that judge. I didn't know what to expect, but everything kind of went well with her. So good situation there too.
Jesus.
Okay, so I will have to, reflect a little bit on what was said with the what you call. I know Ursula was recording it.
I got
probably
coffee
get from
coming.
her,
I
and we
need that
listened to
boost.
What the
I'm like-
prosecution was saying, because I know we're gonna recall them. I can't recall it all right now, word for word. You know what they were talking about, but as they were
Yeah.
talking, it seemed so much that their points were very impotent and very flaccid.
Well, they didn't
and-
go with a lawyer, so you get what you get with the cop.
See,
I'm sure you know this, Murphy, but if you're putting Edgar on the stand, you need to be really on point with scope when they cross-examine.
Mm.
Oh
Can you
yeah, absolutely.
can you explain that? What is that? Like scope and cross-examine?
So when Murphy puts you on the stand, he'll ask you questions, and then they'll get the chance to cross-examine you, but they can only ask you questions about what Murphy asked you about. Now, they can try and ask about stuff he didn't, and if Murphy is not on point with objecting to scope, then they will get to ask more than they should be allowed to.
Can you give me an example so I can be on guard as well and know when it's happening so I don't speak too fast?
So let's say, we put you on the stand and I ask you about, let's just say, the only stuff I ask you about is the murder of Halen Mild and the murder of AK. And then Erin Carter comes up and she asks you about the murder of Jules Montez. At that point, Murphy should object to scope, because the murder of Jules was never mentioned in his questioning, and it shouldn't be allowed to be questioned.
Correct. However, the flip side to that coin, Edgar, is if I go up there and ask you about one of these murders, then you start just like yapping your way into another one, then that opens the scope, and even if I shut it down, that's going to go on record, and they're going to be able to ask about it. So I got to watch it, and you got to watch it.
Give them nothing more than they deserve.
So we should probably already decide like which situations we're going to avoid.
Okay.
So,
Are
in
you
terms
gonna?
of like,
am I gonna be called in the stand? Like, why prosecution not call me to stand? I was curious about that.
they can't because you have the right to remain silent. But if you decide to take the stand, then that opens you up to cross-examination. That's
So-
Wait,
so
that's
you
not
can-
how it works,
You
though.
can call me to stand, but once you
Wait.
do that, I'm available. Would that have to be posted in docket, or
Wait.
because it's
No.
my case? At
Wait,
any point
does
I
it?
can be called?
no, you don't count as a witness. You're the defendant.
Wait,
You inherently have
it's
the right to
implied that you
speak
may
on your own
testify.
behalf.
Yeah, you have the option. You have
wait,
every
that's
right
how
to
they
speak.
do it
You
now?
have every right to
Te-
represent yourself. You have every right to testify, and you have every right to shut the fuck up too.
Oh, wait. They can't do direct in NoPixel?
Make sense?
See, it making sense.
I'm not gonna. This is probably some new shit. Generally
Yeah, so
speaking,
in this case,
if you're
like,
on the
normally
list,
you would
the
not want to
prosecution
take the
can call you
stand
up
in
and
a
ask direct.
situation facing
Yeah.
serious charges like this.
That's
Since we're
actually
gonna be
very
feeding
interesting.
them,
That
it's
goes
important that
hugely
you're
in his favor.
sympathetic and that your side of the story is represented, and that remorse is expressed, and especially the genuine remorse that you're talking about here. All those things are good, especially if we're like, there's not much we can do about some of this stuff. In a case like this,
That's
that
really
matters.
good.
Because if you cannot provide the context and tell your side of the story,
No,
without
cross
other
is different.
witnesses and
I'm talking
without
about
other
direct.
evidence, then yeah, it's a risk you're gonna have to take.
If you can post facto decide to come in as a witness
mitigate
for
the
the
sentence.
defense,
The court,
prosecution
like, my
should
reluctance to
normally
delay
would be
further,
able to ask
I think
direct.
Is testament to that as well for the court to see. I was the one who canceled the contention of the contesting the warrant and the note
Mm.
just to get the trial
Mm.
going. And even today, when it was offered, I say no because, like you say, I am not trying to run from what happened. Just not, be killed, I guess, or put in life.
Given how long tomorrow might go, given the seriousness and severity of this
It's
case,
gonna be a
I
long
wouldn't be
one, brother.
surprised if the verdict is given the day after.
Yeah.
I think the judge is going to try to avoid that as much as possible. But yeah, I would prepare for that possibility.
It's
We did speak about it afterwards in regards to the character witnesses. I let Edgar know that they might need to be available some other day, maybe. But today went by pretty quickly, and tomorrow won't. But I'd still like to remain optimistic about getting it all done tomorrow.
Okay, and what am I to do for the rest of the night? Or what you need from me, and when can we reconvene on the morrow?
In the meantime, I'm still very curious what happened to Silas. If anyone learns more about that, I'd like to know, in case it's related, in case I need to change up and maybe put on some other clothes and hide out or something. If there's someone who's after just anyone representing you, that's a good piece of information for me to have the next 24. Other than that, anything you can
Doubt
think
that's
of,
the case.
basically.
yeah, no, I think it's very unrelated.
Okay.
I mean, he was definitely, I think there was an attempt to kill him, but very, very unlikely related to this.
All right. Yeah, if you hear different, just let me know that. And in regards to the case, yeah, pretty much anything that you can dig up in terms of what strategy was beforehand, or anything that would add to our position of temporary insanity, not in control of your actions, anything that might prove definitively or corroborate that certain victims were already dead when you had supposedly shot at them. Anything you can think of, really.
For me, I think like as long as that plea for insanity or anything that's stated tomorrow does not infer any sort of premeditation or knowledge or thought that, hey, I was going to kill them, right? Because that right now, I mean, that would work against you. I think.
Yeah, the idea is that he was not himself, and he doesn't
Has
quite
that worked?
recall everything, and again, that scope was all opened up today, so that's kind of the plan.
Has insanity worked at all recently, like in the last year and a half?
Well,
Not
see,
that I've seen, but I haven't seen it tried much.
insanity sucks, because then you have to go be inpatient, get cleared, and then go on trial. So like insanity would just like postpone the trial, but temporary insanity is very different. It's losing control. It's almost a crime of passion, but you are sort of acknowledging there was a break with reality, or a mental health crisis, or significant trauma that resulted in a loss of control.
My only, and I don't want to influence too heavily your strategy here, but the food for thought would be, would the judge, when they hear the defense of temporary insanity, expect any form of evidence suggesting that to be the case? Medical records or statements by, you mentioned like getting Pixie on the stand. And the second would be, there is a possibility.
Hello, I'm in a meeting. Who is it? Hello? Go ahead. You were saying? Hello? Can anybody hear me?
See, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's like
Oh, I
everybody
thought
just
you were
went
still on
quiet.
the phone. Yeah.
Yes.
No,
so
no, no,
do
no.
I.
I hung up. It was
Yeah.
Ember, so like she can't even talk. So she
Oh,
just
yeah,
called me and then texted me, and yeah, it's fine. Go
yeah.
ahead.
I thought you were just like, hello, you fucking whoever's on the phone, like fucking answer. Yeah. So, so food for thought is a question of has temporary insanity worked as of late? That's an interesting thought that runs through my mind. The second is there any evidence that kind of underlines that being the case? Because if I was in the judge's mind, thinking about that as sort of the plea or the inference of why these things happened, to aim towards a second degree, there is the possibility of it's like a made up argument. You know what I mean? Is there anything that can be brought forth that substantiates the claim, right?
Well, we're gonna rely heavily on Edgar being upfront and honest and realistic about the fact that there's a lot of proven stuff in this case against him, and we're gonna lean heavily on him being sympathetic and showing remorse and explaining kind of what happened to him in a way that argues against the premeditation. As far as anything that can supplement that or corroborate that, I'm all ears. I would love to hear or be directed to any of the evidence that might help with that, because that would help.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we're going to get to add any witnesses or anything.
You do have Barrett, if that helps, but I don't know how it would, but it looks like that's the only witness that was motioned on.
So, in regards to that, I would only do it for ones where it can't be denied that Edgar was there, and that being Hale and Wild and Bruce.
Right, because where the evidence is flimsy, we can try to remove those counts by questioning the evidence for sure.
I mean,
I'm going to be honest, I probably need a day. I'm fucking cooked right now. You may be able to try to motion to add a witness last minute as a consequence. Maybe there's some sympathy about, you taking this last second. If there was like one person you could realistically bring in that may like really assist with making that argument, that might be worth a shot.
Yeah, I mean, the worst they can say is no. So if there is a person who can corroborate that, maybe marinate on that. But I need to kind of go over everything, and then I'll have an enhanced appraisal and kind of idea if there's anything that we can pull last minute. But for now, I'm kind of at the mercy of what you all know already.
I think, Senor Braun, if there is a solution, that you have found it. There is
I
only
appreciate.
as
I appreciate the faith you're putting in me right now, but
well, listen, I see that perhaps the three best at their craft here collecting in one room. And judging the 3 points that everyone is making, Robin mentioned here casting. There's only two situations where I can be definitively placed on scene or video evidence that cannot be refuted, and only one of them is murder. Nino bring up a very important point that premeditation has to be steered away from in all of these, and that the confession note, even if we cast doubt on it, contain intimate information that only I was privy to, which bore results. And what you have said here, which is the temporary insanity and the sincere and earnest grief and the lifestyle change after, that is not just a day or two, it's not just a pretend for a week. It's been a long time very, very long time. And all of these pieces together, I believe, I, I don't know what more can be said or figured out in the present.
I have a question.
See,
Is there anything in the evidence, or that I might have missed in testimony today, that tends to indicate motive? Because so far, like in terms of premeditation, right? Like I haven't heard anything that kind of indicates that you had any motive here.
my motive, amigo, was grief. I don't wish to speak too much more on it. I don't want to talk. I want to tell you it's grief. Grief
Oh,
and regret,
you don't
which
you
can
don't
stir
need
a
to
man
speak on it.
to do things that he was not in his right state.
The confession calls them
you don't need to
offerings.
speak you don't need to speak to what the real answer to that question is. What I'm asking is, have they put forward any theory on why you premeditated murder these people and what connects them and all that?
I see what you are saying. No, I don't believe they had. They just talk about the number of bullets and response time.
Because yeah, that could go well for us in terms of premeditation if they can't identify a motive. That tends to
I got some
lean
great caffeine on the
heavier
way.
in you are not in control of your right mind kind of side of things, because there's no connection and that sort of thing.
Oh my God,
that
I
they
can't
can
wait this
point out, then
coffee to slap
that
me in the
hurts
face.
premeditation
Oh, it's
argument.
here. Give me a sec.
A little bit anyway. Could be enough.
Saren, how did you win your first degree murder case? What did they not do? Saren?
Well, we argued against the lack of malice aforethought, premeditation. We kind of led them astray throughout the rest of the case and then hammered home on that in the end. They had mostly, well, they had a number of evidence available to them, but when it came time to making closing arguments, they kind of focused on everything but that. It was barely even brought up. And so that's how we got that.
That coffee hits.
Not guilty. Now, if I might add a little bit, I've been listening. Am I correct to say that y'all are discounting Bruce Baylor because he did not die?
I mean, yeah, like that's obviously not going to be a first or second degree murder.
Are you aware of any serial assaults and killings cases where it was argued that attempted first degree murder and then additional counts of murder took place?
Yeah, I mean, like I can recall cases where someone who just like goes around stabbing people almost nearly to death a ton of times, especially around a certain area or a certain location, like that will be charged as such. Yeah,
Fucking
I'm familiar.
Garfield guy. Fucking horror story back in the day.
Garfield.
He used to chew up people's like inner thighs or some shit.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as Bruce Baylor, this pendejo was like,
I don't know if
owning,
Murphy
like,
remembers.
half the
He was
city
one of the
properties. I
victims.
think they would fucking carry me around the city and parade after what I did. I thought I did the city a service.
That's one of my
And here's the
characters.
thing is, like, if people don't die, I feel like
I don't think he remembers.
the standard.
But then again, I don't know if
it's
it.
like, okay, if you got to kill 3 people to be a serial killer, serial assaults and killers, the serial assaults need to be a bit more extreme than if they were murders, I'd say.
Have you gone over the evidence that was submitted? the video?
Have I gone
video
over
is
the
not
evidence that
great.
was submitted? Not
How
exactly.
you doing? Good evening.
Yeah, so
Well,
the Bruce Baylor one was used as an advertisement to sell guns.
yeah.
Wait, what?
So it could be fairly easily argued in closing that there was malice aforethought, premeditation, or at the very least intent. So I would not
for
discount
Bruce, Yes, I could see it.
But
Because you-
my
yeah.
question is though, like, okay, let's say we get one of the murders dropped, or like whatever brings the murders down to 2 that are guilty. Is that one assault going to count as one and make it serial assaults and killings?
that's what I'm advising be careful on. Because
I just don't
I'm
see
not,
how that adds up though. Because
well,
if 2 of the murders aren't legit, then you can't just like add an assault and say, or an attempt, and say that it's a serial killing.
well,
at least
it's a
that's my
serial
opinion.
assaults and killings.
Yeah.
And
It's like marking it up to mark it down. If they don't get the convictions.
I just would not I would not rest on your laurels on that one.
Oh, I'm not resting for at least the next 48 hours, probably.
Mm.
Pass.
See, now that I think about it, if we want to be technical, serial assaults needs attempted first or first degree. The murder of Halen Wild was neither of those. It was murder of a government employee.
Pass.
And that might sound like a superficial kind of arbitrary distinction, but it actually isn't really. That is a good distinction to keep in mind
Yep.
if we can use it.
The other thing I was noting was about an affirmative defense, temporary insanity. I think you're going to have to figure out ways to argue against them, the prosecution, arguing that the video evidence that they've submitted, shows a sane, competent man, actioning extreme violence.
Okay, well, they're not fucking doctors. So
I
we
understand.
each have the same like mid chance of winning over that argument. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I
Like,
don't
I'm
disagree.
not a doctor. They're not a doctor. It's going to come down to how Edgar sells it, and again, like his authentic remorse, and I consider the closest defense to the truth in this case to be the most effective.
Understood.
Give me my head a couple moments.
What is this guy's
And to
name?
your point,
Oh,
I agree with you.
Duba
You
Gale.
said that, what
Katal Duba
truth
Gale.
genuinely felt hard
What the
about.
fuck is this
Like-
name?
By the way,
Katal Duba Gale.
that Halen Wild, I don't even know if he was human. He was not bleeding when he was shot. He
Black
wasn't
ooze.
bleeding. See? Not that it counts.
Don't even get me started on that. That thing's an entire fucking shit show right now.
I feel most confident, Murphy, in your advice, and I believe if there's any chance out of this, it's the closest to the truth. Even the death of, or the gunning down of Bruce Baylor. And if someone takes a look at that video, it's not the happenings and doings of rational man. And I don't mean just because of violence.
The problem is that he was in cuffs.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Nothing, nothing, nothing. I was just agreeing with. I think our best chance is closest to the truth.
Yeah.
While keeping in mind what both Nino and Robin have said and done here, which is the focus away from premeditation.
Oh, it's Steve's cop? Bro, that is the most, like, what the fuck name? I don't even know how the fuck anyone's gonna... Are you gonna say that shit over radio, bro?
Yeah, I mean, this is like a best case scenario kind of situation. It's like, you know, it's not an ideal case. Let's be honest. So, mitigating the damage in the sentencing, top priority. Removing premeditation, or at least casting doubt on the level of premeditation. Those are the deepest discounts we can get.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I must convene with my family and have a lot to discuss with them, gentlemen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Robin, I thank you. Murphy, I thank you. Nino, I
Yeah.
thank you. Senor, what was your name?
Absolutely.
Serenade.
Serenade. Thank you as well.
All right.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
we've
God.
obviously got a lot of reading to do. A couple meetings to take in the meantime. But
I think Robin fell
should be
asleep.
ready to go tomorrow.
Okay.
He's kind of an old guy.
Hey, Robin, you good?
I think he said he was going to rest his eyes for a minute.
Oh, got you. I can wait with him. Oh. Yeah, let me lay you out. There we go.
But I'll
All right.
keep you posted either way.
But by the way,
what you
Nino,
plan.
there is something I want to ask you. I tried calling you the other day, but I think it was a little past bedtime.
You want to you want to chat right now, or
See, I don't mind. It's just a quick question.
Mhm.
Before Sonia, became in the ICU. She lived in a property. Whatever happened to that property? Because I see it not belong to her. It not
yes.
belong to the person that it was meant for. It don't belong to the family or the close persons. It's been a point of mystery for me since returning.
Yes, I am. I think we should chat about that subject whenever you got some time.
Okay.
For her sake, that is.
See.
Yeah.
Just can you tell me if it is falling into ill hands?
Murphy, can you give me an
Yeah, I just need to know, Edgar, do you have do you have a alternate means of getting out of here? We came here in my car, so
No, I tell you what, let's do what you said, Nino, and talk about it after tomorrow.
All right, that sounds good.
I want to head out of here with Murphy and not keep him waiting.
Easy.
But I think you have some information.
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very aware.
We'll talk then.
All right. You stay safe. Oh my God, bro.
I think it's going to be an interesting case.
Yeah, tomorrow's going to be very interesting. Or maybe even tonight. I don't know. I have the feeling. It's crazy how the lawyer got shot the day before. Silas Moreno, a patient's woken up in the ICU.
Those, unfortunate timing.
Yep. Right.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
You know, I hope I didn't overstep my bounds.
No, I don't think he did.
Yeah, I noticed that he kind of tensed up a little bit while I was talking, so I didn't, know if I was a little too straight-laced with him.
Ooh, Murphy?
No, Edgar.
Tensed up?
Yeah.
You look very similar to his lawyer who was shot in the head.
Yeah, I have my own beef with Silent. Someone bashed me over the back of the head the other day thinking I was him.
Really?
Yep.
You remember
Just ran
who it
up to
was?
me.
How they looked like?
No. I don't know.
It could have been the assassination game.
Maybe.
Yeah. The part of the game is you have to hunt people and hit them upside the head.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Hey. All right. How old are you, Robin? If you don't mind me asking.
75.
Gotcha. Look, if you need to, anytime you need to rest on a sofa, I got you. Yeah.
All right. You sure?
All right. You stay safe.
You too.
All right. All right. Let's chat a little bit of legislation. Let's kind of dive that. I want to set you like kind of on the right. Like I didn't want to completely cook it, but I'd like you to kind of. So that traffic ordinance, I'd like you to take what you think is necessary and try to jam it in there.
Okay. You want to use the existing as the framework, and then
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you think it needs to be embellished further to clean up that document, let's do that in a V